Hello and welcome to Open Minds UFO Radio. I am your host, Alejandro Rojas, and we have with us podcaster extraordinaire, Martin Willis.
Yo.
So are you back in the country?
I am back, and, you know, it is cold as heck. I was in 90-degree weather in Russia, and, you know, 75, 80 in Austria, and now it is 50 to 60 degrees.
You're kidding. It's already that cold there?
Yeah, I think, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, we're having some weird weather. And, you know, the whole East Coast is bracing, you know, south of here, bracing for Florence, the hurricane. Mm-hmm. So we may get some weather from that. But we will have, I looked in the weather, we will have some warmer days coming.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost time to put the hosers on, you know? Hey?
What are hosers? I thought that was a person, like
it's
a knucklehead.
Canadian.
You call someone a hoser, I thought. I didn't know it was actually a garment as well.
Oh, yes, it's a garment, but they call each other hosers. I don't know exactly why. Yeah. Okay. You know, I might be totally wrong on that, but that's what I think the whole thing originated from. Yeah, you hoser, you.
So, welcome back to the country. How was Vienna? I mean, I hear it's awesome.
It was absolutely beautiful. It really was. It's a city where the only thing, you know, I'm not a smoker and I don't like cigarette smoking. It seems like 50 or 60%, maybe even higher, of the people smoke there everywhere you go.
Wow.
Cafes, you name it. But that being said, Eduardo was a wonderful person. Really enjoyed hanging out with him. Very interesting guy. And also him, along with other people I got to talk to, they love it there. They love living in that city. They love the country and love the city and would live nowhere else. And but it is absolutely beautiful architecture.
Yeah.
And it was just really a lot of fun.
It's not surprising because people love it there. They talk about how wonderful it is there. And that is so cool that you got to meet him because he did these great posters for us. And, of course, we're all such fans of his work. Great graphic design.
Yep. And he's actually from Brazil and lived in England for about 4 or 5 years and then moved 10 years ago. He moved to Austria, and he just says it's the best place in the world. He just loves it.
Wow. So remember, everybody, he did a poster for you. He's done one for me. I know he's done one for Ryan Sprague. And
that's right.
You can purchase the T-shirt with the poster he did for Open Minds UFO Radio at our store. So if you're watching this on YouTube, actually, you'll see those T-shirts right here under the video. For the rest of you, you can just click the links because there's links in the show notes. There's links all over. Or if you go to openminds.tv, you'll see a link on the upper right for branded products. And if you go there, you'll see the poster. So really cool stuff.
That was a really good idea to make a T-shirt out of that. I would have never thought of that.
Well, you know who made me think of it was Ryan. Ryan made a comment that he made a T-shirt out of his, and it was selling really well. And I thought that is a great idea because you can also get stickers, and I've sold a couple of those. So it's like, it gives people the opportunity to enjoy his work, which I know he loves. Yeah,
well, maybe I'll just have to fall in line and do the same thing.
Yep. So,
sounds good.
What is also funny about it being cold out there is I have just gotten back from Las Vegas on a top secret project, which I'm going to tell you all about. So it won't be so secret, but many aspects will still be secret. But I'll tell you about that in a second. But here in Phoenix, of course, too, it's well over 100. So it's still so hot that it's funny to think about that. Although I'll be at Devil's Tower this weekend, and for their UFO event. And last year at this time, because it's on the same period of time, it was very, very cold, especially at night, freezing as we went out with Mark D'Antonio to look at stars, which we're really excited to do again. I'm just going to have to be sure to bring my super warm clothing.
Now, do people ever talk about actual UFO sightings in that area?
Yes.
They do. Wow.
But I don't know that it's like there's more than usual. But you know, people talk about UFO sightings all over the place. Before we get further, I want to tell people who I've got as a guest today, and that is Chris O'Brien. So, of course, Chris O'Brien, he runs the website Our Strange Planet. He has written a lot about the San Luis Valley of Colorado, where a lot of mystery has happened. And, of course, listeners who have been with me for years know that I've had my own experiences there, and that's where my family comes from. And so Chris and I have been talking about this on the show for a very long time. But he's got something really cool going on. It's called the UFO Data Acquisition Project that he's beginning in the San Luis Valley. And this is not too dissimilar from what other people have said that they want to do, including Mark D'Antonio with UFOTOG, or another group of researchers, some of whom are with To the Stars or worked with Bigelow, that have this organization called UFO Data, where they wanted to take cameras and other, sensing devices to be able to grab data while there are UFO sightings, and or triangulate these cameras so they can get video of these UFO sightings. What the difference is, and what's more exciting about what Chris is doing, is that he's actually rolling. He actually has finished his devices. He's constructed them. He's got a couple he will be deploying here soon. And he does have a GoFundMe to raise some money to build a couple more, but he's also made these very affordable. So it's a very practical project. It's something, we've been waiting, and, hopefully I don't upset anybody. We've been waiting a long time for these other projects to come up with something, and they've been working and working and working. And Chris, he's like the horse that races up from the race from behind and wins the race. He's the first out of the gate, and I'm really impressed with what he's put together.
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit about it. He actually visited me here in Maine, and
cool.
We went out on the lake in my boat, which actually broke down in the middle of the lake, and we were stranded.
You're kidding?
No, but he saved us. He was pretending to be a pirate. He was acting like a nut, and standing on the bow, up on the bow with the two life preservers, waving his arms back and forth. Someone actually came and saved us.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Saved the day.
You have a lot of funny stories like this where things seem to go wrong.
I'm proud of it. Well, the boat was such an easy fix. It just took 2 seconds to fix it, and I just couldn't figure it out at the time. But anyway,
that is so funny.
It was memorable. I will say that. He's really a character. He's a lot of fun.
He is a character, no doubt. And he'll be there this weekend at the Devil's Tower as well. So it's going to be cool to see him doing his talk about this project. So everybody will be able to hear about that. And I fully endorse this project. I really think that Chris is someone who's trustworthy, that he's already created these things and he's going to be rolling. So I think that this is a good place for people to help out if they have a few dollars, because I think that this is an effort that will be fruitful. But we'll hear more about it coming up here.
Yeah, and I do agree. Chris, just from him staying in my guest house for a while and all that, very, very trustworthy and honorable guy. So if anyone's thinking about donating, you can feel very comfortable about that.
Yeah, he can be ornery. He's definitely got
but he's still a very honest guy.
Yeah,
he's very honest. Yeah,
honest, ornery.
Ornery, but honest. Yeah.
All right, and he's not shy. He knows he can be ornery, and he's It's funny. Yeah. All right, so let's get into some UFO news. What do you got for me, buddy?
Well, I got from our good old friend Luis Elizondo. There's an article on medium.com, and it's really a great article. I hope people will get a chance to read through it. Why unidentified aerial phenomena are national security risk, and also an opportunity for progress. That's the title of his article here. And so he basically talks about a career's worth of intelligence work for the U.S. government has taught him one key lesson: national security is a lot like playing a game of chess. You have to anticipate your opponent's every move in order to remain a step ahead. So, and disclosing your strategy will be used against you, but if you recognize certain opportunities, you can win the match. So he basically talks about when he was getting involved in the advanced Aerosmith threat identification, AATIP, and he worked as with the team to assess whether these were actually a threat, and he just kind of puts it in a familiar way of like a board game and what they had to do, the back and forth. But he also says there are risks in keeping that information classified. Say the person who first learned how to harness the fire never shared it with the next generation, or the person who invented the telescope threw it away when he was done using it. And what if the creator of the wheel decided it was too labor intensive for others to build and decided to forget it? And I get exactly what he's saying. And oftentimes I wonder, like if a certain person was never born, like Einstein. What if Einstein was never born? Or, where would we be now? Some people just absolutely shape where we are in our future and all that. Well, as he goes on to say, as a species, we're meant to evolve, and we're needed those advancements to get where we are today. Reports of strange crafts with seemingly inexplicable properties have been circulating within the U.S. government for at least 70 years, which suggests it's not going away. There's something out there. And declassifying certain information about UAP and sharing it with the public could lead to new technology discoveries, new forms of medical research, and a broader view of how humanity understands reality. So, I mean, he makes so many good points in this. Have you read through this, actually?
Oh, yeah. I've read through and dissected and reread different parts, because I think this article is very important, and I do have it on, I guess, an update, or at least a little clue for people, some behind the scenes. I do know another article's coming, but what I love about this article, first of all, I think he's right on. I mean, he makes some really good points here, including at the end getting into, if the government doesn't share information, and this is a point that Jacques Vallée has made, even when he did his UN talk back in the 70s. He says, essentially, just this sentence, what Elizondo said: secrecy empowers people selling their snake oil and YouTubers profit from peddling their ill-informed narratives about UFOs. So pretty strong statement. He went on and said, soon people start believing in Elvis living on Mothership, just as they once believed you could fall off the edge of the earth. So the point is, if they're being too secretive, he's trying to explain why they would want to be secretive, in that we don't want dangerous information getting to the enemy, but at the same time he's saying that we still need to reveal some information because it's important for the world to grow, like the point you made with Einstein. So I agree with these points that he's making. This is also there are a number of really important statements in this article. Another one is, since the government views unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, as a potential national security issue, they're secretive by necessity. They don't want to reveal any information to a potential enemy. That is a very, very important statement coming from, someone who investigated UFOs for the government. He's saying, first of all, that they do see it as a potential threat, and second of all, as a threat that requires a potential threat that requires secrecy. And why? And I think that for us researching, maybe that's not news, but it's a statement. It's a fairly official statement, which is very important. We haven't had something like that. Of course, Nick Pope says similar things because he worked for the MOD investigating UFOs. In fact, Nick Pope says very similar things to Elizondo throughout because they have these similar backgrounds. But and we get more insight into how governments and militaries, react to this phenomena or deal with it. And so it's as much a conversation to the public as I think it is to his colleagues as to why we need to at least be talking with the public about this and sharing some information with the public. And hopefully more information will come out. But what a great article, I thought.
Right. And, I've heard Stan Friedman say something similar along the lines like, we wouldn't want, if we were able to back engineer, we would not want that in enemy hands. And so I get that part of it too, if there's some type of parallel to that. I mean, is he stating anything along those lines? Not necessarily back engineering, but I know one of the things To the Stars has claimed is that they would like to sort of back engineer by how something is, operating. And I can't quite understand exactly what they mean by that. Did you have any more information on that?
Back engineer how the objects are operating?
Yeah, by observing. That's kind of what To the Stars has claimed they were planning on doing.
Yes. In fact, a lot of different groups have claimed to have done that. In fact, Stanton Friedman was hired for a project ran by Bob Woods, and I can't remember the company. I think it was Lockheed, but or it was Martin Marietta. It was one of the large defense contractors, and they essentially had told Bob Wood, okay, you're into UFOs, start a project where you try to figure out if you can glean any technology from these UFOs. So it was a big deal, that a private corporation would do this publicly. And who knows, private corporations may be doing this non-publicly. Of course, Bigelow has done something similar, but a lot of the MUFON people, such as John Schuessler, who was a NASA engineer, they felt the same. What can we learn from observing these phenomena? And so they have observed them, and there are things that they feel that they have learned. I think Elizondo's talked about this a little bit. He doesn't like to get too much into it because he says, first of all, I'm not a physicist. Second of all, it's speculative. But what they can do is observe, just by observing the performance, observing the way something maneuvers, and observing potential effects such as electromagnetic effects that physically they have on things, and or by observing potential like auras. A lot of people talk about these things having sort of a halo of energy around them, and that can be give them clues. So from the observations that they have, including the videos which have been released, that I know they do feel that they have been able to glean. They have some theories that they want to move down, and these theories fit their theoretical theories as to how anti-gravity may work. And so, or at least anti-gravity type of effect. So, or I guess a propulsion that, it does give them clues to technologies they may be able to develop, or at least helps them head down a road. And on this point, even with Star Trek was a television show. But the reason we have, and there has been studies, there have been lectures on this, the reason the technology we have is similar to Star Trek is not that necessarily Star Trek was insightful into where we were headed. It was more that the engineers were inspired by the technologies that they created into Star Trek. And so engineers moved towards creating those things. And so...
Fascinating.
Yeah, and that is an interesting phenomenon, because that would be the question. Wow, they were really good at predicting the future. Well, no, they were actually really good at shaping the future. So observations or even, creative brainstorming or entertainment can influence the evolution of technology. So, yeah, certainly the observations. I think that's an interesting thing to think about, too, because if we are... observing advanced civilizations, then they would likely be aware, because that's a big deal with us. When we're when scientists are examining a phenomena, it's documented that there's an observer effect. The observer affects what they're observing, right. And so they should be aware of that. So they should be, it would make sense that they would know that they're having an effect on us.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, really interesting. And there's also, To the Stars released it's kind of condensed, but they released his Elizondo's MUFON talk.
Yes.
And I know some people thought this was boring, and I'm not sure why, because I don't get it. I mean, what he is doing is talking about how the government looked at the UFO phenomena, how they tackled it, how they broke it down, and how they decided they needed to investigate and why. And I mean, it's extraordinary insight into, how the government would tackle this issue. And it's great insight into how a professional way in investigating this, especially from people who have resources. I mean, it's extraordinary that we've got this guy, after decades of being told that the government doesn't care about UFOs, we've got this guy who worked at the Pentagon doing this stuff, giving us this incredible information. And these are amazing times. A lot of researchers, I know George Knapp feels this way as well, are just like, wow. This is amazing that this is happening right now. And sorry, real quick, I've got my secret project.
Oh, geez, we only have a few minutes.
Yeah, so I better get that in. The secret project was in Las Vegas. Essentially, it was for a friend and family premiere of Hunt for the Skinwalker. So I did get an interview with Jeremy and an interview with George Knapp that we'll be posting on Den of Geek and on Open Minds. And so we've got a lot of stuff to hype up the movie. But the movie's great. And so it was really cool to see George and all of those guys. But yeah, even more insight into how weird, these government investigations got. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there was something revealed, too, that the government was actually involved in the research there.
Yeah,
which,
now,
that's
really,
kind of new news.
That was not revealed here so much. Like, I've been talking about this because George Knapp really revealed this, but it was hidden somewhat. In an article on KLAS, he talked about how we just discovered that this government program was centered here in Nevada. And what he was talking about was Bigelow. So he revealed that this cooperation had been going back for years and included research such as the Skinwalker Ranch. So really, that was the first kind of outing of that. And but they get more into it in this film. And this film is really, outing that or discussing that in a bigger arena. But you're right. That's what also makes this film so significant is that, this Skinwalker Ranch, it turns out, was funded by the government.
Yeah. Amazing. Mm-hmm. Yep. All good stuff. Boy.
Yeah.
Boy, this news thing went by really fast today, didn't it?
It did.
We're just about out of time.
I know. It flew, and it's such exciting news, but I guess we'll just talk about more news next time, but I guess we are out of time, so we need to get to our interview. But once again, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure, and you know that.
Yes, well, I'm glad you find it that way. It is for me as well.
Awesome.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into our interview with Chris O'Brien right after this break. Hello and welcome back to Open Minds UFO Radio. I am your host, Alejandro Rojas, and I am happy to have back on the show Chris O'Brien. Hello, Mr. O'Brien.
Good to be back.
Yes. And it's exciting what you're working on, and for several reasons, but we'll go ahead and introduce that. But so, of course, your specialty, and some people may have forgotten, I don't know, because it's been a while, one of your earlier research and what you really got known for is this San Luis Valley, which in Colorado, which is pretty strange, almost like a big skinwalker ranch.
Yeah, supersized.
Yeah, supersized. So maybe you could tell people about the valley.
Well, yeah, it is America's best kept paranormal secret by far, leaps and bounds. It sits at an average height of about 7,500 feet, and it's geologically about 145 miles long, 70 miles wide at its widest point. Kind of looks like a giant football, flattened out, but surrounded by 11, 12,000 to 14,000 foot high mountains. And it sits right there at the bottom in the center of Colorado, right at the border. And at the very southern end of the valley, of course, is the world famous New Mexico art colony of Taos, with the Taos Pueblo. And that's about as far north as the Spanish got in the 15 and 1600s, before spending 200 years getting the nerve up to go north into the valley. I moved there in 1989. I knew about the valley. I just happened to arrive there. Coincidentally, I'd moved out from the East Coast to Santa Fe, and I instantly didn't like living there in Santa Fe. Kind of the universe was telling me that it wasn't right for me. I saw 2 fatal car accidents and a guy get hit by a bus. Oh, it was just really, really not good. All the signs were that I should look for somewhere else. So my girlfriend and I had friends that lived up in Crestone, this cool little mining town up in the San Luis Valley, and they had an extra couple of bedrooms, and they said, why don't you come on up and check it out? And, if you don't like it, there's plenty of other places around here you might like, Pagosa and Walsenburg and other places. And I ended up living there for 13 years, and starting in 92 through 2002, when I moved out, I did a 10-year investigation of the valley that resulted in 3 books. One was a bestseller, The Mysterious Valley. And I really dug into just the most bewildering and amazing array of paranormal events, I think unrivaled anywhere in the United States, at least. There's a variety and intensity of unusual, unexplained experiences and reports there that's unrivaled anywhere in the country. Everything from hundreds of UFO sightings over the time period, dozens and dozens of cattle mutilations, flying humanoids, trooping fairies, occult crime, weird weather, aberrant social behavior. The list goes on and on. Crypto stuff, Bigfoot, unexplained dimensional type portal activity, Native American sacred sites. The list goes on and on and on. And that's why I wrote 3 books about it. So anyway, I have always, for ever since I started getting involved in the early 90s there, I've always had this just wish and goal of attempting to put together a surveillance net around the valley. The valley is so open, and it's so, it's just so pristine there. If you get up on the foothills, you can see almost 300 miles, and it's just unencumbered. There's no trees in the middle of the valley, very few trees. There's no, nothing blocks your line of sight to the horizon. And so initially, when I tried to cost out what it would cost to put in triangulated or 2 or 3 camera surveillance net there, the cost was somewhere upwards of $1 million to do it properly with the level of technology and the cost of that technology back in the 90s. Now that cost is all the way down and we can do it. We're going to end up spending about $10,000, $12,000 to do this project. And not only do we have pan, tilt, zoom cameras that are being operated automatically by software, but we also have these, we call them MSDAU, or multi-sensor data acquisition units, which have equipment in there that will measure changes in the Earth's magnetic field, changes in the Earth's gravitational field. We're going to have it all plugged into Flight Radar 24, which will automatically tell us if anything flying around has got transponders, like, regular commercial aviation and military flights, that sort of thing. We're going to be plugged into the NASA Meteor site. We're going to be plugged into space.com. So if we do have events, we can go back and look at satellite imaging of the area during the time period that we're interested in. This is historic, Alejandro. No one has ever done this before. It's groundbreaking. I posted stuff on the internet, about our GoFundMe project and, pictures of the gear and stuff. And it was like, I couldn't believe the roaring silence. It's everybody is either, they're either, I don't know, in a state of waking coma, or they have, it's going totally over their head how important this could be. But very few people have given me an attaboy and, hey, way to go. It's a little disheartening. I think people are more interested in going to hoax sites and watching bad character-generated images.
There's definitely that. I mean, I have that problem with the show because we like to stick with more credible stuff. So, everybody wants to hear about the real wacky, crazy speculation instead of the hard stuff. But I think the other problem you have is a little bit of fatigue in that, we've had these other organizations, and people probably are like, oh, we've heard this before because we've had these other organizations say they're going to do this. But you are much further along. I mean, you have the hardware ready to roll, whereas these other groups who say they're going to do something similar still, after all these years, don't have anything to show for it.
Yeah, and we won't mention any names.
Yeah.
But
yes,
and we were very, very fortunate to get our newest team member, a computer engineer and inventor and software designer named Ron Olch out in California. He has put in over 5,000 hours designing our detect motion, follow motion, motion tracking, and also sending signals to the other cameras so that they zoom in on the object. So we have 3 cameras operating, looking at a particular event. And we go into record mode at that point. Emails are sent to, the 3 principals in the project, myself, Ron, and Wayne Hollenbeck. We're getting alerts in real time. And when we have the MSDAU packs, all out there in the field, they will then go into record mode and record all those scientific changes in the energy fields that I was referring to earlier. And then later, we're going to have we have other things planned too. We want to do kind of a clandestine pulsed radar. We want to have telescopes on pan and tilt platforms. We want analog optical gear that has blazed gratings that separate the light into the light spectra. This is science, folks. This is not throwing hubcaps in the air and sitting at your computer drawing light balls flying around punch hole clouds, that sort of thing. This is real science. If we can replicate the data that we get on more than one event, we will do what Skinwalker Ranch scientists couldn't do, and that is actually write a paper and combine our efforts with a real credited scientist, an optical physicist, and other scientific disciplines to actually do a paper and publish it. This has never, ever been done before. This is potentially historic. I am so proud to be a part of this team. I am so proud of Ron Olch. He's written over 10,000 lines of code. The software is a poor man's military targeting software, if you will. And, I could go on and on and on talking about the actual technical side of this. But basically what we're going to be able to do is capture hard scientific data of anomalous aerial object events.
Well, and at your GoFundMe, another cool thing that you have, just to kind of show along, first you have pictures of the equipment ready to roll, and then you also have a video, which I think is really cool, further kind of acknowledgement that you all are ready to roll, that you're far along. But this motion tracking software video that you posted there is really cool.
Yeah, it's like poor man's military targeting software, basically. Mm-hmm. But the slew rate,
it works,
even though it's only targeting a plane. I mean, Ron lives in in the valley there in southern Colorado, or Southern California rather, and so he doesn't have the ability to track fast moving objects like we're going to be seeing in the valley. However, we have tested the slew rate for the panning of the cameras, and we can follow really fast motion. I'm not exactly sure what our slew rates are. It depends, obviously, on the size of the object, the distance from the camera, and how fast it's traveling. But I estimate at between 30 and 40 miles, something traveling 10,000 miles an hour will easily be able to be tracked. Mm-hmm. And other instrumentation that we're looking at too. It's very important for people to understand that UFO events or UAP events have other things going on that the human senses can't pick up. In other words, compressed time, ghost imaging, objects moving around faster than the human eye can perceive. Also, acoustic signatures all the way down to 10 cycles. Extremely long, huge bass waves, if you will, extremely low frequency waves, that when objects do dramatic turns, right-hand turns, reversal of direction at high speed, they're impacting the actual atmosphere sonically. And if you have the proper PZM plate mics set up, you can actually record these acoustic signatures of these objects when they're making these dramatic turns. So, and this is something not many people know. In the field, even some scientists aren't even aware of this, I think. And so we do have plans for phase 2 to go into even more exotic recording technology that include, like I said, the acoustic wave signature recordings. And also, if people would get off their asses and we can get some really good deep pocket funding, we could have long range, nitrogen cooled, forward-looking infrared, and actually get some real good heat signature data with $20,000 FLIR cameras. People say, well, FLIR isn't that expensive. Yeah, if you want a FLIR camera that looks at 50 feet from you, yeah, you can buy them for fairly inexpensive. But if you want something that's going to be looking and imaging objects out at 50 miles, it's a whole different ballgame. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we have a lot of plans for this. If I can get the public to get their collective head put their collective hands in their wallets, then maybe we could really take this to the next level. But hey, it's roaring silence, lots of yawns and people going, oh, that's cool, man. It's like, well, yeah, it is cool, but be a part of the solution, not a continuing part of the problem.
Well, although you do say that, you've done fairly well. I mean, already you only have 13 people donating, but they're all putting in like a pretty big chunk. You've got $1,200, which isn't too bad. And I think what people should understand also is what you're talking about, the expense that you're talking about is relatively very low. I mean, that is right. Very inexpensive to cover what is literally the largest valley in the United States or mountain, valley in the United States.
No, in the world, the largest alpine valley in the world.
Wow.
We're going to be covering about 5,000 square miles of airspace, unencumbered, with no blockage. Mm-hmm. I mean, horizon to horizon, 360 degrees.
And, like you said, and another reason that this valley is so good for this is that it's very remote. I mean, Taos is pretty popular. Alamosa has a small college, but otherwise it's really small. And like you said, there are so many. I had my first UFO sighting there in that valley. My family goes back in the valley, and the valley's important. In fact, Open Minds, you can find tons of news about the San Luis Valley, mostly about your work. But you can also see on the front page my sighting, because I talked about it at that Comic-Con at Project Blue Book, so I have that video and the photo about my sighting. But that was in the San Luis Valley at the UFO Watchtower, which was created kind of before, during the lull of really kind of UFO popularity, just because so many people see stuff out there.
Right. Well, I kind of laugh about the Watchtower. Judy Messeline, who came up with the idea and built it, she had read my book, The Mysterious Valley, and she called me up and said, "Hey, what would you think if I built something there?" And I said, "Wow, that's so cool." And so I was going to do her floor. I was going to actually do an adobe floor in there for her, but she decided to go with concrete. And I mean, if I was going to put a watchtower somewhere, that would be the spot, because it has a front row on the Great Sand Dunes, Blanca, and the Baca Ranch area, which is probably the most per capita. There's more UFO sightings in that section of America than any other spot, and in a valley that has 7 or 8 people per square mile, and it's, if you live in Crestone, it's 120 miles round trip just to go to the supermarket.
Wow.
This is a big, huge open area, and with cameras that have 36 times optical zoom, and then times 3, we're going to be getting some really cool stuff. And I probably shouldn't say this, Alejandro, but I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit. The whole Sangre de Cristo range, which is the eastern side of the valley, from the middle of the valley up to the north part of the valley, is the western edge of the La Vida low-flight military operations area, where we train all our Air National Guard pilots, and we test fly exotic black aircraft. But don't tell anybody.
I've had some pretty weird experiences with aircraft out there. And in the Sangre de Cristos. In fact, I think one time we heard this sonic boom before we saw the plane, and then we saw the plane zip by. It was black. I felt at the time, this was in the 90s, we were backpacking way up in the hills there. I felt it was maybe like an SR-71 or something. It was huge, and it was black. That was a weird experience. Well,
we're going to have a front row seat for the MTR, the military training route that goes north to south there along the Sangres. And we're going to be able to capture some really cool natural phenomenon. The Sangre de Cristo is the longest continuous mountain range in the United States, is filled with quartz. And when it gets 40 below in the wintertime with 5% humidity, occasionally the quartz will discharge up into the atmosphere, these piezoelectric static discharges. And to my knowledge, no one has ever been able to photograph that. So it would be historic from an actual geological scientific point of view to be able to record those, number one. Number two, we have, I think, earthquake fault lights that people like William Corliss, Paul Devereaux, Michael Persinger have talked about as being a possible explanation for some, not all, some UFO sighting reports. And also the area just north and west of the Great Sand Dunes, right out in front of the Watchtower, is filled with $2 billion worth of methane. Now, if the conditions are right, sometimes methane can fluoresce. I'm not sure what the actual scientific process is, but it's what Alan Hynek called swamp gas.
Yeah,
methane can actually create light and color when it is exposed to the right environmental conditions. So not only are we looking for anomalous aerial objects and black, our tax dollars flying by, but we're also looking at separating out the wheat from the chaff, separating out natural phenomena, things like helicopters flying by, the sun hitting the canopy at the right angle to make it bloom into a wonderful silver orb. I have footage of that from our beta test that we did in 2010. We have a camera image of a small helicopter when the sun is hitting the canopy and it turns into this giant kind of silver orb flying by. We want to be able to use the data to factor out false positives and really zero in and drill down on what TRUFO, scientific UFO research, is all about.
Mm-hmm. It's really exciting. Just because, and let's talk about these timelines. Like, how soon, and what are the next steps? So, how soon will you be deploying, actual equipment? How much money do you need to start that? And once you get the money, how quickly can you roll? Those sort of things.
Well, in a week and a half, I'm not sure when you're going to be broadcasting, but starting on the 16th of September through the 20th, that 40 period, we're going to be putting up 2 cameras. One is going to be on a cell tower north of Monte Vista on the eastern side of the valley, or the western side, western side of the valley. One will be 18 miles away to the east at the UFO Watchtower, and then I'm going to be setting up the planning stages of putting a camera at the Great Sand Dunes Oasis, which is located just south of the entrance to the Great Sand Dunes National Park. And that triangulated array is going to be our main array for our first deployment. Now, there's also a chance that I'll be putting up a 4th camera up in Crestone, way high up on the mountains, over 1,000 feet above the valley floor, to kind of overlook the entire triangulated camera array as a 4th kind of God in the sky kind of camera, if you will. Now that's phase 1 is the first 2 cameras. Phase 2 will be next spring. Will be the camera out at the Great Sand Dunes Oasis, and we're also going to be putting in our MSDAU, our multi sensor data acquisition unit, which has the scientific gear that's going to be detecting changes in the magnetic field, gravitational field, and all the things I described before. Initially, we're not going to be putting those in. We're still working out the triangulation software. That process is undergoing its final stages in California as we speak. We do have the gear already built. And we have cameras that are going to be a mile apart overlooking Catalina Island up on the cliffs of San Pedro. And we're going to be finishing up our software development for triangulation there for the actual MSDAU units. And then next spring, we're going to put those 1, possibly 2 of those units into the valley. And we're going to put the 3rd camera at the Great Sand Dunes Oasis, and possibly a 4th camera in Crestone. Those 2 cameras we already have. We already have the MSDAU units. And then once we get that all together, we're going to come up with a price list that's going to make it affordable and easy for people who live in a hotspot area or wherever to get their own set of cameras, their own set of multi-sensor data acquisition units, the MSDAUs, so that they can set up their own network. Mount Adams, Mount Shasta, the White Sands in New Mexico, Dulce, the Hudson Valley. There's all sorts of places that are already interested in getting these units once we demonstrate the viability of it. So ultimately, our plan is to provide the equipment for these networks and slowly expand across the country in hotspot areas, and then hopefully even expand worldwide, get some units over into Europe, get some units in South America, get some units in Hawaii and other places that have, pretty consistent activity. So this is not just a backyard San Luis Valley vanity project by any stretch. We really have big plans. And of course, it's all going to be hinged on interest, funding, and these sort of things. In terms of funding, we don't need really too much money to do what we're set to do here in a couple of weeks. I basically have my gear, and I have enough expense money to travel there and actually do the installations, pay people to install cameras, pay internet costs, pay maintenance costs for the next year. All this is already covered. What we're doing now is trying to continue the GoFundMe process so we can build more sensing units, buy more cameras, keep working on the software, make it more and more sophisticated as we dial it in and we get it really tweaked and set and ready to go. We want to start expanding the capabilities. We want to start adding in these new sensing units. We want to make sure that our interfacing with flight, Radar 24 and the NASA Bulleye projects and stuff that we want to be working with. We want to make sure that
we've got
all these things are integrated.
So we got to go to break, so we'll be right back to talk more about this. We've got Chris O'Brien here, and we're talking about this exciting project, the UFO data acquisition project. So we'll be talking about that more as soon as we come back. If you're on KGRA, then you'll hear some commercials. For the rest of you, you'll hear a short musical interlude. We'll be right back with Chris O'Brien. Welcome back to Open Minds UFO Radio. I'm your host, Alejandro Rojas, and we're talking to Chris O'Brien. And I don't know if you noticed this, but this is also cool about your GoFundMe, Chris, is that it says, at least currently, that your campaign is trending. So hopefully we can keep that going, because I think that helps you get more visibility as well.
Yeah, hopefully. Again, I don't think people realize how significant this particular project really is. There's never been anything like it in the history of ufology. The only thing that comes close is the famous or notorious Hasdalen project in Norway. And what separates us from them is we're triangulated. They only have single units working, and they pretty much kind of have I think they're dialing in the fact that they're looking at natural phenomena there. The valley there does not have the kind of variety and intensity of activity that we see in the San Luis Valley and other places. That's what separates us from their project. But, again, we really tip our hats to Jacques Vallée and his efforts in the 70s to try to put, cameras up in Happy Valley, California. Of course, the indomitable Ray Stanford, who kind of led the way, really, in 73 with the Project Starlight effort. They got $2 million together to have recording video cameras, lasers, radar, all sorts of stuff, and they had success. Ray is our chief consultant. He's one of our chief analysts who's going to be helping analyze our data once we start collecting it. And, Jacques Vallée has given us some suggestions and has been very kind in his help. We have Ron Reguer, of course, who worked for Aerojet and Douglas Aircraft and helped design, engineering manuals for some of our most classified satellite technology, and, helped design the second stage of Apollo, the Saturn V. And he's a very close friend and also one of our really valuable advisors and consultants. So, we do have a team that's supporting us not only from the day-to-day development side, but also from the conceptual and then, of course, once we start collecting data on the analytical side as well, which is also as important.
Mm-hmm. Once you have something, like, is there a one place where you're going to be putting out information to the public as you hopefully capture interesting stuff, even if you're able to debunk it, or even if it's not that, it's not exotic. Like, for example,
right.
I'm sure you're going to get, because the skies are so huge there, if anybody goes and looks at pictures at the watchtower, or even go to Google and maps and look at it, you'll see pictures that are amazing. But you're probably going to get great, like, meteorites and other just really cool videos. Is there going to be a place where you're going to be putting all that up?
Yeah, initially we were going to have a live streaming situation, and that's really kind of was on our wish list. But the more we talk to the scientific community and people that really we respect, they're telling us that you can't have a live feed because people are going to grab stuff. They're going to make a big deal out of false positives. They'll take your footage and superimpose bad CG and claim it's real. It just opens up too many balls of wax. So initially what we're going to do is we're going to have a page on my website, Our Strange Plant, will be the initial home for the project. But I want to put together, and I'm working with a web page developer to have a dedicated page for the project, and each of the camera deployments will have their own section of the website. So the initial section will be the San Luis Valley. The second one will be San Pedro off Catalina Island, and the third hopefully will be up in Washington State around the Trout Lake, Mount Adams area, or possibly on the other side of the Cascades over at the Yakima Indian Reservation, just north of the Hanford nuclear site. Those are the first two additional places that we're looking at. So each one of those, once we get deployments, they will have their own section in the website. And as soon as we have something that we feel we've identified, let's say that's not exotic, like meteors, cool bird footage that maybe had us scratching our heads for a while, or maybe some tax dollar stuff flying by. Well, we'll have to think about that. But, the false positive stuff we want to put up there and show people how you can be fooled by naturally occurring things and what to look for to ID these things. And once we get something really cool and exotic, then the whole analytical process will go full speed ahead, and we'll be analyzing the information. We'll be, very carefully and painstakingly logging the information in a scientific manner. We'll be able to then hopefully get some peer review, and we'll see about that. But at some point, obviously, then this stuff will be, we want to be as transparent as we can possibly be, and this stuff obviously will be made available to the public. One of the things that I've suggested is to have a second camera, along with the real, heavy duty scientific camera, but have a second camera that is streaming live on the internet, so people can kind of tune in when they want, but doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the expensive gear has.
Yeah, because it does make sense. Unfortunately, as you and I know, and are always frustrated with, there are so many people who do fake videos, and they're very popular. And, we have to field questions about these stupid fake video sites all the time because they're out there. So it's unfortunately a really big concern that I'm sure, whoever advised you is right. And you know this as well, that people will take your videos and then add CG UFOs and claim they're real. And unfortunately, more people are prone to believe that than the real stuff.
It's funny how that works, isn't it? Jeez. Well, yeah, that is a major concern. And, we do really want this to be as open source. We're going to supply the public with all our codes. All our software designs will be available for anybody that wants it. It's all open source. We're going to attempt, when we sell these packages, to do it to keep the price down as far down as possible, so it's affordable. Ron obviously is spending a lot of time on his own dime doing this work, so we want to give him at least a minimum amount of money to be fabricating these sensor packages, and so we're going to have to add a little bit on there, but a full system could be as low as $2,500. Now that's amazing when you think about it. The amount of science for $2,500 that you could have in a package like this means that a lot of people could afford to set this up in a proper location in their neck of the woods and become part of a solution, not exacerbate the problem, which is all these poor people out there mesmerized by bad CG and flying hubcaps and bird shots at the right angle. It's just it's so disheartening, and I know you know what I'm saying, Alejandro. It's just so frustrating to know that the average level of education in this field in the public is going down by leaps and bounds, and this project will be an attempt to not only capture some of this stuff as it flies by and analyze it properly and present it to the scientific community in a way that's irrefutable. That's the main goal. But the other goal is to educate people. This is not a UFO. This is. These events, even though they look impressive, are really not what we're looking at. What we're looking for. These are bolides. These are earthquake lights. This is piezoelectric effects. These are swamp gas. This is insects flying by close to the camera, birds flying by further away. Glitches in software. All this stuff is going to be at fairly good resolution. So you don't have all that YouTube compression that people think that it makes people's eyes look like lizards, and just so much BF ignorance. I hate to say it, but man, there's a lot of people out there that really don't know their ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to analyzing something in an intelligent, educated manner.
Yes, frustrating, no doubt. But is this what you're going to be talking about also at the Devil's Tower this weekend?
Yes, I'm going to be talking about the San Luis Valley, weekend. Give people kind of some background on the location, and then dive right into the project, and hopefully, generate some excitement and also get some feedback from yourself and Karen and Mark D'Antonio and David Weatherly and David Marler and Lee Spiegel and, the other speakers there. I can't wait to bounce some of this stuff off, talk a little shop, do a little inside baseball, and find out what you guys think, some ideas that you might have, concerns you might have, suggestions. That's invaluable for me because I really respect everybody that's going to be there, and I really want to make this as much of a team effort as possible.
That reminds me, because, Mark is working on kind of a project, a side project that is the same. Of course, they've been working on this for years, and they haven't finished their system yet. But
UFOTOG.
Yeah, UFOTOG. So hopefully, we've had him on probably at least once a year to talk about it for the last few years, and they're still working on it. But have you, I would imagine, are you open? Let's say there are other groups, such as the other groups who are wanting to attempt something like this. Say, hey, Chris, you've already got something rolling. You've proven it's a good system and it's working. Can we jump on board and help you maybe fix designs and incorporate this and to our network as well?
Please. Yes, I'm a team player. There's so many people running around thinking that they own the process. My proverbial dung doesn't stink. I'm the coolest guy on the block, blah, blah, blah. I don't like that kind of iconoclastic standalone thinking. This isn't a tennis match. It's a football game, okay? I'm a team player. I want to work with people. I want to bounce ideas off each other. I don't want any sort of ego involved in all this. There's too many egos in this field, Alejandro, and that's what creates a lot of the divisions. People say, well, this is my turf. I don't want you to. I am open for any and all critiques, comments, suggestions, help, collaborations, requests for my advice and my help. I'm willing to be all things for all projects, and anything I can do to help them, I am more than happy to do it. In fact, I'd be honored to.
And I think that's exciting because I know you've already made offers like this to the other organizations out there, and I'm sure everybody's like, yeah, everybody's trying to do this, but what gives you what's great is you're the first out of the gate to actually make it happen, and that's really important. Yeah. And these others haven't, so you're going to have information and processes and experiences that are going to be invaluable to everyone. So I hope that helps them take you more seriously, and then be like, okay, well, he's got this role, and maybe we do need to just jump on board and help him out,
or at least pay attention.
Because if they're excited about the projects genuinely, then what they'll be excited for you and your project and that you've made it thus far, and it is exciting that finally we'll be able to start to get things. And I have a feeling that you're going to get some really cool video pretty quickly.
Well, and not only really cool video, but we're going to get really cool scientific data about changes in the Earth's magnetic, gravitational, and acoustic fields.
Mm-hmm.
The optical stuff is fun. The camera stuff is fun. But the real meat and potatoes data and stuff that scientists start slobbering over is the kind of sensory data that we're really after. The optical stuff is cool because then it says, hey, look, we have all these changes in the Earth's, energetic processes, and this is what it looks like. It's, what's the cliche at 4th of July? Ooh, ah, oh. Gee, ooh, that's all fine and dandy. It's the real data on graphs, stuff that you can, take to the optical physics journal, and stuff that can be taken to Goddard Space Flight Center and the Jet Propulsion Lab, places like that. That's what we're interested in.
Mm-hmm. That's exciting stuff. And the other, I think that's what makes this really, really important, and where you're going to be is important. And you're hitting on all of the big stuff. First of all, having the right equipment and the right sensory data to collect, and then also the price point, of course, is really important, because I can see businesses even throughout the valley or individuals. So, for instance, because Dulce is such a hot spot and such a big, everybody's curious about Dulce, it'd probably take no problem to get someone to donate $2,500 to put in a unit
buy
there.
Gear to put into Dulce, yeah, and then it costs to put it in and maintain it. Now, Dulce, as the crow flies, is only about 50 miles away from the valley. Mm-hmm. People forget that. Dulce is kind of the red herring. Hey, everybody look over here while the real stuff's going on in the SLV. I've been saying that for years. Yeah. But you're right. Dulce is a great place because there's lots of very close in, it's a more concentrated area, and it has more of an opportunity to put up eye in the sky type camera positions that would be able to cover a smaller area but really effectively. So Dulce is high up on our list. White Sands around Oscura Peak, outside of the White Sands Proving Grounds, is another area that we're very interested in. I have interest from Pine Bush in New York, Hudson Valley stuff, the Black Hills of South Dakota, where we're going to be next week, is also a notorious UFO hotspot. You don't hear about it as much because, like the San Luis Valley, people see stuff there all the time, and it's almost normal for them. So, they don't report it because it's not a big deal. It's like, why report something that we see all the time? People don't understand that places like the San Luis Valley, that is number one in the North America for per capita sightings. There's 274 events cited for every 10,000 people in the population. But I think, and I would guess, that less than 1 in 50 or 60 sightings is reported in the San Luis Valley. So whenever you see any numbers of reports, I have somewhere around 600 that have 10 bits of data that I can rely on, that can go into my database. Times that by 50, mm-hmm. And if you go to my OnStellar site, or you go to my website, OurStrangePlanet.com, you'll notice in there that there's a map that it took me quite a while to put together that has all the sighting reports that I investigated from 92 to 2002. Each one of the saucers you see on that map is 5 reports. So that'll give you an idea of how intense the activity can be when stuff is really, really popping around there. Back in the 90s, I got as many as 17 reports in one day, just to give you an idea of how intense it can get there at times. And we have the last month, there's been a dozen reports that we have, including a couple of good photographs. So, I'm hoping that we're going to hit that nice fall wave. Usually it's fall and spring where the waves happen. And we're hoping that we can surf that wave and get some really good quality stuff by the end of November, beginning of December.
So on your map, just about at the New Mexico border on the south end of the valley, you have a section that is labeled Investigate at Your Own Risk.
Yeah. And there's one just to the east of the Sangre de Cristos, again along the border with New Mexico and Colorado, that is also labeled that way.
And why are they labeled that way?
Well, number one, there are holes in my data. I have a real hard time investigating in those areas for various reasons. And also, it's where there's a lot of suspicious kind of government stuff going on, military stuff. And
so I know one of those hills there, because I used to drive this all the time when I lived in Denver. My mom was in Albuquerque. I would drive through the valley. Plus, I would go there to vacation every summer at the sand dunes once or twice. Rick, our buddy Rick, has that monthly or yearly event that I go to as well, where he has camping out there and sky watching and stuff.
Rick Nelson and the Paradigm Group, yeah.
I remember, I think it's Ute Mountain or the, I think one called Turtle Mountain, where people suspect there's something under it, huh?
Yeah, Ute Mountain is suspect. San Antonio Peak, which is the sister mountain that's below Antonito. That's where all the Bigfoot reports come from. From there up the Coneus Canyon area. Ute Mountain is right near the Rio Grande Gorge, and we've had reports of helicopters flying in and not flying out, and helicopters flying out, but no apparent reason why they should be there. These are areas that, Donald Rumsfeld has an elk ranch. Ted Turner has a big, huge spread. I could go on and on privately about these areas, but prefer to kind of leave it a little bit nebulous here on the radio.
Yeah, beautiful area too. All of that, Dulce, all of that area is so gorgeous. But we are out of time. But thank you so much. You definitely have an advocate in me. So I, as much as possible, will be out there trying to promote this. I've already shared.
Well, I appreciate that
on all our social media, your GoFundMe. But
let me go ahead and give that GoFundMe address, because I know there's people out there, Alejandro, that think like we do, that really want to see this field move forward, not become stagnant. Go to GoFundMe.com/UFO, D as in dog, A as in apple, P as in project, UFO DAP dash SLV for San Luis Valley. So GoFundMe.com/UFO DAP dash SLV. Thanks a lot.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on again.
Hey, I can't wait to hang with you guys and kick this whole thing around here next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've never been to Devil's Tower, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's amazing.
I know. I can't wait.
Thank you so much to Chris O'Brien for joining us on the show. Really interesting stuff. I'm so excited about his program. If you want to help him out, which I encourage you to do so, because really he's gotten the cost down very low, and it's worth it. I mean, it's so great that he's made this affordable as well as making it functional. So if you go to GoFundMe, you can look for UFO DAP for the San Luis Valley. Just type in UFO DAP and you should be able to find it. You can also find out more information at his website, ourstrangeplanet.com. And if you got the time, you can also find out more at the Devil's Tower UFO Rendezvous this weekend, the 13th to the 15th. Chris, myself, Lee Spiegel, Mark D'Antonio, David Marler, and of course the lovely Karen Brard doing her first lecture there at the event. It should be a ton of fun. We were there last year, and the people hosting are just so nice. It's such a gorgeous town, and of course, Devil's Tower is an amazing structure there. Natural phenomena happening there in the middle of these beautiful woods in Wyoming. So that's going to be a lot of fun. In other news, Skinwalker. So the Hunt for the Skinwalker movie comes out today. So most of you are hearing this on the 11th. So today is the day the movie comes out. And along with the movie, we're going to have exclusive content. So I went on that secret project, right, to go to the premiere of the movie in Las Vegas. I can't even tell you everybody who was there, but George Knapp was there, and so was Colm Kelleher. These are both the authors of the original book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, and a bunch of other people were there. This documentary is so important, and you'll see some exclusive interviews on YouTube with me and Jeremy and George Knapp. You'll also see these on Den of Geek, but if you follow me, then you'll see all of these great interviews with these guys to talk about why this documentary is so important. And those of you who read the book or have been following my work already know why. So this is really, really exciting stuff. So keep an eye out for that. The UFO Congress. We talked about once UFO Congress, the new YouTube page got up to 1,000 subscribers. We'd have some giveaways. So keep an eye if you are on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed yet, go do that. If you are a subscriber, we're going to message you through there if you're the winner of a t-shirt or an alien glow-in-the-dark hat. And we have a new video about that glow-in-the-dark hat on that YouTube channel for UFO Congress, so go there and check it out. It's found footage freaky. You're going to love it. So UFO Congress YouTube page, check that out. You can follow me on Patreon as well, and you'll be up to date on all of this. So everything I'm doing, I'm putting on my Patreon page for everybody to see. We've also got a couple exclusive videos on there that you have to be a patron to be able to see, and being a patron's not very expensive, and it helps me out a ton because it lets me focus on getting more content out, and I'm getting so much more out. Devil's Tower, I'm going to have a bunch of exclusive interviews. It's going to be great. So I'm just getting out this content for you like crazy. So if you want to help me out, you can just give give me $1 for God's sakes. That would be helpful. Or go buy a t-shirt or something like that. All of this information you can find at openminds.tv. But I do want to thank my Patreon patrons. Amy Brooks, thank you so much. Andrew Ross, James, Joseph Hallett, Ryan, and Waylon. Thank you all so much for being patrons. And if you are a patron, like I said, you can find out everything I'm doing. You can also subscribe to our email list at openminds.tv and also keep up to date on all of this really cool stuff going on, because I'm doing more than just UFO stuff. I'm doing space videos, kind of on around tech and technology and all of this cool stuff. All of it can be found at my Patreon. So that is it for today. Thank you so much to Caleb Hanks for the opening and the close music. Thank you to Systematics for that bumper music. Thank you to Martin Willis of Podcast UFO for joining us with the news. And, of course, thank you to Chris O'Brien. And thank you all for listening. If you're there this weekend, be sure and say hello. But thank you all so much. Until next time, adios, muchachos.